Hello everyone, this is going to be a really fun step-by-step tutorial on how to cut short layers at home. Now, I'm gonna just have a disclaimer here. When you're trying to cut any haircut at home, I always say do it at your own risk because it's not easy to do, especially on shorter haircuts. Some parts of doing a shorter haircut with layers is easy because the hair is shorter. However, it gets more and more complicated as you go to certain areas, for example, of the back of the head. And I understand why you're getting your haircut or you're doing your own haircut. And many of you, and if you're new to my channel, welcome. I've been a hairstylist for over 30 years. And many of you who have watched my videos have all commented that you get better haircuts doing it yourself. You follow along with my videos, and that's great. And also, if you happen to be a hair professional watching this, this is going to be helpful anyway because this is a haircut that is essential to know. Now, it's taken me quite some time to really perfect this and understand it, but if you keep it simple, it's really going to be helpful. So the first thing I like to do is just find your parting, right? Find where your hair wants to live on your head. Typically, it's towards the center or the side, but we're going to go the natural kind of middle part here. Doesn't have to be perfect, but the hair will eventually, when it's dry, fall into its natural shape, meaning it's gonna fall where it wants to fall, which is what the natural parting is. So I always try to do right down the middle, and then what I'll do is I will create another section which is on the side here, and that's basically just separating the front from the back. So what you can do is just find the flattest part on your head, which is usually about right here, and it's almost about, right on top of the ear or right behind the ear. And all that really does is just give you an idea of like, okay, what's the front and what's the back? So you're not getting the two confused because there are two different sections of the head. You can even, clip this out of the way so that you have like the entire back separated, so you can just clip that. So you're like, okay, all we're doing is focusing on, these parts right in through here. Also, depending on your head shape, everything varies. And the way I'm going to demonstrate this is going to be fairly universal. If you're, male, female, doesn't matter. Like, this applies to the same type of process. So it's really, really important that you follow these steps. So what I'm going to do first, and I would take a different approach, slightly different approach if I were cutting a client's hair. However, I'm going to make this as close as I possibly can to if I was doing that compared to if you're doing it yourself. All right? Now, what I want to first thing you need to understand is how short do you want to go? Only you will know that, okay? And if you're working on a client, that's where the consultation comes in. That's where you decide, or you see their previous haircut, how short, how long. And if you hear noise in the background, the building that I'm in, they're getting a whole new roof. We're getting a new roof, so you may hear some banging or weird stuff. That's what's going on. So when it comes to how short you want your layers to be, that's all up to you. What I'm going to do, and I have to lower this head slightly, is I am going to create my first section. Now, typically, this is going to be right here in the top, right here. This is the front of the face, the head. So if you're doing this, you're going to be combing from behind or in front. And I want you to pick that first section of hair, which is going to be very close to, if not at the very top of your head, right here. It may be sitting more towards the back. It's not in the front. It's not in the very, very back. It's like right here where the comb lays the flattest, where we made that section. This is probably the most important part and piece of the entire haircut because this is going to determine how long this whole thing is going to be, your layers. So if I cut it this short, it's going to fall to here. If I go here, it's going to fall down. So just remember, wherever you, or however much you cut, that whatever's left, the hair is going to fall to that same length. That's why it's important. Don't go too short. However, don't leave it too long either. So it's totally up to you. So for this demonstration, let's just say I'm going to cut the hair to right here. All right, so all I'm going to do, you want to make sure that you are holding your arms level as you can so that your elbow's not down here. It's level, because watch what happens when I drop my arm. It goes this way. So you want to make sure that your arm is as consistent as possible with the comb. And what you're going to do is you're going to cut your first snip. And this piece right here is our entire haircut. Now, what we're going to accomplish today and do is a layered haircut, a classic layered feathered haircut, which a lot of people seem to love when I do these tutorials. So what I'm going to do is hold on to this piece. This is our section, our guide. You're going to take another section right down the middle. So the way that I cut hair, and I want you to follow along, is we're going to go the top, the corners, and the sides. The top, the corner. So right now, think of this as like our mohawk section. One lane, we're in the middle lane here, and we're going and staying right down this section. You're going to comb it up again, and we're going to cut. And you're going to see your previous guide from before. That's what you're holding on to. Then you take a little piece of the past and a little piece of the present here, and we're going to then comb upwards. So what we're doing is following the same pattern as best as you possibly can within that middle lane or in that middle section right here, okay? Now, keep in mind, I'm not over-directing or pulling all the way back like this. I'm not pulling the hair back towards me because that eventually would just leave the hair longer and longer. What I'm trying to do is just go as the hair grows out from the head and follow that pattern. So I'm keeping everything very, very consistent and balanced. So next section, there's the guide from what I just cut, and we're going to cut straight across. Okay, now as you can see, we're kind of moving right along. Depending on how thick your hair is, that depends on how many sections you have to take. So here we are in the very, very front. There is the guide, and we're going to cut this. Now, I'm combing this more upwards. Hair grows out from the head, and I'm going to show you a trick and a technique you need to do after we're done with this top here, so it's going to help make that top even better. So the top now is done in the middle. So remember, it's the top, the corners, and the sides. So we're going to split this, right? Split it right back down in half. And this is where now the corners come into play. The corners of the head is where the head rounds out. Now, I'm doing a very balanced, what some could call, a rounded shape or a 90-degree shape. It's basically just the most perfect layered haircut you can get because I'm following the natural pattern. So you can see I'm cutting just on that one section. I'm not going all the way down. I'm following this. Same thing. So take a section from that previous as your guide, and then one new section from here, right? You can even comb this up slightly just to make sure everything is following in that head shape. All right, take a piece from the past. What you want to do, especially if you have maybe finer hair, you want to take a thicker section here. And then what you want to do is follow and cut like this. Okay, so we've created that natural kind of cut and shape. Now it's time to go into the sides. And notice how I'm just staying on this one side and through here. Now, we haven't cut the length yet down into here, and how I'm going to do that is I'm going to do that after we're done cutting the layers, okay? However, now we're going into the very, very sides. So as I comb this out, what I want you to do and observe is how I'm combing this. So there's the piece from before. There's our guide. And now I'm going to comb this straight out. And I'm going to cut and follow and connect those two. There we go right there. And I'm connecting. You may have to go back up slightly just to connect all of this in one. But there it is. And the length will now basically set itself. And then what's going to happen is we'll go back in and then change that up and strengthen that line up on the bottom length. So now we can clearly see all of that hair on the bottom here. And then you probably may or may not have anything in the very, very front. There's just that one little piece. And now watch what's going to happen. As I raise this mannequin head up, what's going to happen is this hair, as we can see right into here, this hair now has become like a little bit more stringy, I would say, or not so solid here on the ends because we haven't really cut the length. It's established a length for us, which you can see right here, but we haven't actually cut this, all right? And this is where the angle comes in. We haven't done any face framing or angling or anything. So what's going to happen is you could see this is where we have to go back and sharpen this up and blend the two, right? Now, this, again, is us going a little bit shorter. So let's just establish the length. So we're going to cut this right here. So I'm just strengthening that up. So this is where your length is going to be. Then it's going to work into everything else going downwards like this. But this front, you can see what's happened here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to comb this all forward like so. And we're going to create and establish our angle. And we're going to connect the dots right into here, which is going to create a more rounded shape coming in this way. As you can see what I'm doing here, I'm strengthening that line up. So now let's go in the very, very front because we didn't cut any of this yet. And here is where I'm going to connect the dots right here. Okay, so now we're creating a shape to where everything is now working into itself. May have some hairs that are stuck there. You can just chop those off right there. So now we've created a more rounded, fuller shape coming in this way, as you can see. There it is, right? So now we have to duplicate this on the other side. And the way I'm going to do that myself, because it's going to be harder for you if you're doing it at home. Instead of, you're going to have to throw your arm over. This is where, like, if you're doing this on somebody else, it's a lot easier. But you're gonna have to throw your arms over this way. That's why it gets really, really complicated. And I say, go to a professional. All right, so there it is. I'm doing now the corners on the other side. Remember, top corners and sides. And now I'm going to comb this front right into here. There's the guide, which I can see. And now I've done the corner. Now it's time to do the bottom. Okay, let's go down all the way into here. I can actually get this in probably 1 or 2 sections. There's the guide, and I'm going to cut upwards. Let's see if there's any hair into here. Just a little bit, and I'm going to cut upwards. Okay, boom, there, it's done. Same thing now. Same exact thing on the other side. Here's the length, and what you want to do is just match this up slightly. You can just do this by trying to comb this down and just cut this and match it up with the other side. Right there. Cool. So now we're even Steven. This side and this side are the same. Now it's time to make this connection right in through here. And I'm going to cut that going upwards. And the only reason we have to do this is because I didn't once establish any sort of length. So we're basically doing this at the same time. And here is the very, very front piece. And there it is right there. So let's comb this downwards. Let's comb this towards the face this way. I got to go a little bit shorter into here. A lot of times I'm so focused on the camera angles that I lose track of where I'm cutting. All right, here we go. So a lot of this is just really perfecting it. Going over it and over it and over it and over it. And it should look something like this, right? So we can comb all this forward just to check, to make sure this is all looking good. Once again, you may see some little pieces in through here. Stragglers, just cut those. But we're on the right track if we're looking like this. And I'm just going to go in right here. So you want to make sure that all of this hair is flowing forwards, just like this, right? Now, you may have to go back and re-wet some of this with a spray bottle, especially if you're doing this yourself, because you want to make sure that everything is pretty evenly saturated with water. And let's cut right here. Yeah, this is a piece that was overhanging. All right, so now it's time to go into this part. And this is where it's going to get complicated. especially if you're doing this yourself. It's almost impossible. You know, I just know that a lot of people like to attempt this. If you are doing this yourself, or I'm sorry, you're doing this at home, but someone else is cutting this, much easier. much easier, that's for sure. All right, so now I'm going to just raise this camera slightly here. Now, this is where we can see, here's the side, and what the best thing to do is try to almost draw a line like this. We have to connect all of this, right? So the first thing is, how long do you want this in the back, right? The very back here. How long do you want this hair to be? If you're doing this on someone else, it's so much easier. Meaning, if you're a husband doing the wife's hair, or a friend, or whatever, you're doing someone else's hair, it's going to be much easier to do this. So let's say in the back, we want our length to be about right here. Right here, touching on the back of the neck. So we can do this in two ways. You can do two sections, multiple sections, depending on how long it is. You could also do it in one section. But let's just do it in two sections, just so it's not so complicated. And I'll try to make this easier for you. And what do? You just grab all this hair. Does it have to be perfect? Not necessarily, but just get this hair out of the way. If the hair is a lot longer, so you have maybe two sections. And now we can clearly see, so it's not so thick, right? Now, here we go. I want this length, once again, to be about right here. So I'm going to comb this down, and I'm going to cut straight across. Notice how I use the comb. I didn't use my hands or my fingers. You could also lay the scissors on the back of the neck like that. And we're cutting straight across. This is where, once again, I don't want to get in the way of the camera. So we're a little off on this side here. There we go. All right, let's turn this way. Beautiful. So now, this looks like, oh, Steven, this is the bob we just did. Not yet. Take down this next section right here, the hair that's overhanging, and now we can, kind of reconnect all this and just cut that off to match. We're basically cutting this off to match the other side and the length, all right? You can use your hands, right? If you were to go in and use your hands, that's totally fine. But if you didn't want to, you're not used to holding hair like this, you can cut it like this. Now, we've got this short piece and this. This is where we connect the dots, right? This is a really important part of this haircut, and you're going to start to see everything take shape. So let's cut this straight down. Let's comb this straight down. There's our piece, our guide, and all I'm doing is just cutting on an angle, and look what we did. We've literally just created a nice, perfect connection and shape going from this into this. Not so complicated, right? It's just all about connecting the dots. Same thing on this side, right? There's that piece. Let's comb this all forward right here. There's the piece. I can literally eyeball this. And look, created a perfect shape right into here. And then we get rid of that piece right there. Boom, good to go. So this is gonna look very helmet heady right now. But however, there's this little straggler piece flying all over the place. However, when I show you what this does after we're done layering it, then you're going to be really surprised. Okay, so now let's go back and discuss the layers. This is where things are really important. We already did the top. Remember, this is all done. We have to now go back to that origin point and now connect this into this. How do I do that? Is I suggest doing it this way. So for you, you're going to have to comb the hair and almost turn your head like this and work on an angle if you're attempting this yourself at home. If you were to take all this and go straight up and you cut it, you're going to probably end up having a line in through here, okay? Like a harsh step, which you don't want. So go back right here, and I'm going to connect this way, right? I'm cutting it towards the face. So to me, that's vertically. I'm not cutting it straight across, and I'm focusing on that middle mohawk section once again. So I'm combing this all up. You'll be able to see the guide. However, I'm cutting towards. So you're almost cutting like going like in a mohawk section. You're cutting this way. What that does is it just creates a softer blend and connection going this way. Now, if you want, you can at that point then comb everything straight up like this and cut, because we've already made that connection. So let's go into the corners in through here. And now I'm taking all this from the back and combing it upwards. Here we go. As you can see, comb all this. There's the guide, there's the longer hair, and all the way into the corners. Okay? Now, as we go longer and longer down and through here, this is where, again, if you're doing this yourself, it's going to be very, very complicated to do this yourself. That's why someone else cutting this can be helpful. I'm combing this all straight out from the head, and I'm just cutting this as it grows, which is straight out from the head. Not up, out. Really, really important. I'm going to leave these corners for the last part, but what I'm doing is I'm just going and I'm following this pattern right in through here. Combing it out and cutting. And you can see all of this works into itself. Let's go all the way down to the bottom. Comb this straight out. And we've already established our length down in through here. So you're not going to cut what's down here. That's going to drop out on its own. You're cutting what's above that, which is the weight, aka you're layering this. There it is. You can see that bottom length. You're cutting what's on top of that. Let's go on this side and through here. It's like following like you're tracing something, right? You're just following the outline of what was already there. Okay, now let's go back up on this side. So now we're going to go back down this way. So you're going to see all this hair that needs to be cut. Work our way down. Boom. Let's go in through here. Okay, so now let's talk about connecting the corners. It's the same thing. If you were to do this yourself, you can actually comb this forward and see all of that hair, and you can cut it this way, right? Boom. So now we're removing all that weight. So comb this down, and then look for the guide, and there it is. All that longer hair is what needs to be cut. Comb this out. There's the bottom piece, the length, and all we're doing now is just removing that weight. Not down here, because this is the length, and very important. It's all about what's on top of that length. This is how you get a perfect layered haircut. Is by keeping everything, think about it, perfect, right? You're keeping all of the very symmetrical, you're following the pattern, you're just continuing on what you did. So I'm going to just keep combing here, looking for areas that are a bit heavier, and you have the advantage of combing now like this, right? So now I'm going to be cutting downwards. If I see any sort of length or anything that needs to be cut, I'm now pointing my hands downwards, which is called palm to palm. So this allows you to get closer to the head, because there are some parts down through here that are still a bit heavy. And the only way I can do that, I can't do that by cutting this way. I have to change my hand position. Now I'm pointing my fingers at me, or up this way. So now I'm able to go down lower and get all that hair throughout the bottom down here. Like this. You can see all that hair. That's all weight that you need to remove and get rid of. Or else the hair isn't going to have a flow to it. Okay. Now, we didn't do this side yet. Look at all this hair right in through here. So, here we go. Into the corners, into the back. There it is. Boom. Look at all this hair. There it is, and get rid of it. Here's the corner right through here. There's the bottom. And then here's what falls on top of it. And then, so let's comb and cut, comb and cut. I want to make sure that I'm not leaving any sort of, too much weight. I'm not leaving any unwanted hair that needs to be cut. You're being or I'm being very thorough with this, and you want to do the same. And as the hair gets shorter, it's going to kind of jump out at you, and it's going to be very obvious, like right here, that corner, boom, get rid of it. Notice how I'm always constantly trying to keep that base, that solid foundation, as solid as I can, the very, very bottom. I'm really trying to make sure that this foundation, it's like the foundation of a house, is always protected, and I'm not doing anything to disrupt that. That's why you're cutting, once you have that established, you're now cutting on top of that, which is removing weight. Okay, like this. All right, now let's go back and really, really, really double check, triple check, cross check, everything. So this is what I do as a professional when I'm just trying to really, really go in and make sure that everything is even Steven. Now, this is me being a complete lunatic and just really going to town, checking all of the lengths into here, making sure that all these layers are blended and connected, making sure there's no uneven Steven parts here. No, nothing that's a little heavy, and this side was a little bit longer and heavier. So I'm going to now go in and correct that and fix that. This is really, 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 really important. This is different. This is probably why you're not getting a great haircut from your professional, because they aren't doing this. Like, I've worked in salons for over, 30 years or so, even though, I've retired from working in salons and stuff, but I've seen it a million times. Sometimes a stylist, they cut their last section, boom, the scissors are done, they go right to blow drying. Meanwhile, there's still a whole other haircut they need to do to cross-check and make sure everything is balanced and even. And a lot of times they don't do that, right? They'll skimp out on it, and that's why your haircuts are not, they're mediocre at best. Because the stylist is just, they put down, it's like throwing a towel in, right? Taking the gloves off. They're done. They've checked out already. They want to get you out of here so they can work on their next client named Barbara, and that's it. So me, on the other hand, I'm constantly going back, rechecking, making sure everything is fully balanced. That's why the haircut will grow out, not only look good on the spot, but it's going to grow out really, really well. And if you want to have a perfect layered flow, a perfect haircut, you want this to be just, show-stopping, this has to all be done. Now, as far as products go, I'm just going to blow dry this without any products, because I want you all to see kind of the natural flow. If anything, I might use my favorite brush of all time, this anti-static vent brush, which I'll tag here in the video. And let's blow dry it and see what we got. So I'm going to blow dry this pretty much as naturally as I possibly can. Remember how I said the hair is going to flow? I'm just going to use this brush to get some of the knots out, which there aren't really any knots, but I'm just going to use this to kind of help the flow. But this is where the haircut is literally going to do all the work for you. Yeah, I'm just really using this brush to kind of really accentuate those layers and that flow. Nothing complicated about this. Notice how I have the nozzle of the blow dryer on, so it's helping me direct the hair. This is a Dyson, which is almost over $400. However, I do have my own blow dryer, which is, it's not a Dyson, but it still will blow dry your hair, and it's like a fraction of the price. All right, let's turn the head around this way. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you and break down this haircut and show you how nice this looks. Let's get a little bit closer here so you can see what's going on here. Now, I haven't sprayed anything in it. I'll spray some hairspray in a second here, but what I wanted to show you is as I brush this back, look at how beautiful these layers are, okay? Look at how nice this just flows into itself in through here. See that? Look at that. Okay, let's go on this side now, which I haven't brushed really yet. So let's brush this back, and look at how these layers just literally melt into each other. I mean, look at that. It's gorgeous. Look at that. See? One of the hardest haircuts to do. However, it's if you do it like this, you're going to get it executed really nicely. So now here is the magic to show you how this looks even better. I'm going to use my Locked, this is called Locked XL. It's not a super, it's like a good, I'd say solid hold. The smell of this is incredible. Gives the hair a natural kind of light shine or so, just kind of like what a normal hairspray is supposed to do. So I'm going to spray this, and this is just going to accentuate those pieces. It's going to bring all those layers out and really make them look how nice. Look at this. Look how beautiful that looks. This is the haircut that everybody seems to go crazy over. Look how beautiful those layers are. Let's go on this side and through here. I'm combing this, just spraying and combing, just shaping this a little bit. Let's make sure we get the bottom down and through here. Okay, let's comb this in here now. You can see. Let's go on this side here. Beautiful. Well, let me take a look. And yeah, the parting is off. That's my fault. Sorry about that. I can't even see anything. So this is all about really more about the haircut and how beautiful this came out. The shape of this, the flow, the layers. It really is, you know, and some may say, oh, this is outdated, salon guy. I don't wear my hair like this, but I can assure you that the amount of people who are looking for this haircut is more than you actually think, okay? I'm just being a complete lunatic perfectionist right now. And here is the full haircut right here. So let's do a spin around so you all can see how nice these layers are. Look at how nice this all flows into itself. As you can see. I'll even get closer. See how nice that looks? Look at those layers. And I'm just going to comb through this once again. So here's the comb. Watch how these layers just, I mean, look at that. I really want you to see all this because see how it just flows into itself. There's no steps. There's no nothing. It's just a gorgeous, layered, beautiful haircut. See that? You can achieve this with your hands. But, yeah, this is the haircut it seems that not a lot of stylists are doing because the amount of people who reach out begging me to cut their hair like this, offering me hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm retired from clients. However, this was a whopper of a video, and I really would appreciate it. Everybody, if you want, check out my hair tools, my hair products, subscribe, because if you subscribe and turn the notifications on, you can see all my tutorials. Please let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed this. Flood the comments. I put a lot of work in. This was a big job, and we did it all together live, and I really would love to see your feedback. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you soon.